Good afternoon. My name is Wolfgang Krosky. I'm CEO of the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce, and this is a continuation of our candidate series where we are interviewing candidates for Pittsburgh City Council, Pittsburgh Unified School District, Contra Costa Water Board, and a couple other races that will be coming up. So we definitely appreciate your support. And if you would like to watch this recording and the recordings of all the other interviews, you can go to www.pittsburgh.vote, and there you can watch the interviews, you can read the bios of the candidates that the candidates have shared with the chamber, links to their websites, their social media, etc. So again, it's pittsburgh.vote. We encourage you to visit that site and to be informed. But with us today, we have a candidate for the Pittsburgh Unified School District School Board, Maria Bagley, and we want to go ahead and turn the time over to her and let her take a little bit of time to introduce yourself. So Maria, tell us about yourself and how long you've been in Pittsburgh, etc.
All right. Well, thank you, Wolf, and thank you for the Chamber for giving me this opportunity to do this interview and let the voters know and the community know a little bit about me and my campaign and what I stand for. So my name is Maria Bagley. I have lived in Pittsburgh for 15 years, but technically owned a house here for the last 13. I am a mother of 4 children and also a grandmother. I am a community activist, and a lot of the things that I do revolve around supporting our children and community support. Just because I had 4 kids alone, that just kind of got me engaged in all sorts of activities and all sorts of extracurricular involving helping our children. And with that being said, the reason why I am encouraged to run was a conversation that I had with my now 16-year-old in regards to why he doesn't go to school here in Pittsburgh. And I will just be open and honest with everybody. Part of the reason why I'm running is because I tried to put my son here in this school district. And my son is a special needs or has learning disabilities. And he was on the regional center as a toddler, so that should definitely cue you onto he's well documented. And when I didn't put him into the school district, essentially, I was not getting the services. Now, fast forward, he's 16. He was quite, a decade or so younger than that. And still to this day, we're having this problem. And as I'm sure everybody may or may not know, the school district is actually being sued because of their treatment for special needs students. So this summer, we had this conversation of how that he feels socially, emotionally, he's disconnected because he can't go down the street and hang out with his friends like other people can. And I noticed that there is a piece of my life missing from this community because my children don't have that connection like they should. And the reason why they can't have that connection is because of the school district and essentially where they are. So I decided to run for the school board to hopefully make a positive change in terms of looking at their data. I'm not going to reiterate what other candidates have said. Everybody knows that the school district is not doing well on the CDE reports, literacy, math, whatnot. So that is why I am running. And so hopefully, and that's a little bit about me, but yeah, that's why I'm running.
Well, I thank you for sharing your story. I actually can relate very well because my wife and I have a son with unique needs, and he's been with Regional Center since preschool. And actually, before this, I was at the high school for the Special Olympics that they're doing for soccer. So I can understand personally some of the struggles and the fight with that. So you identify that is, kind of what got you started was the experience that your son had and the frustrations that he felt. Do you feel that the experience that he had is unique to him, or a lot of students struggle with that? What are kind of the challenges that you think students are facing in Pittsburgh Unified and just public education in general?
That's a good question. So I've had the conversations with several families throughout the community, and I can honestly tell you that my family is not the only one. This is not unique to me. I experienced this a decade ago, and now there's a lawsuit about this going against PUSD. So I can honestly tell you if they have that much data, I'm not unique. I'm not any different. And there are families that I have talked to, much like mine, who have actually moved their families and their children out and are doing the same thing because of those special needs, and they need those needs to be met. And if our school is not able to do that here, we have a huge problem. Then we have families that also have issues with, their special needs child, and they don't have the resources to move their children out. So they are stuck with, a district that I don't feel is providing adequate educations and, opportunities to these children.
Okay, so with that, definitely have talked a lot about, the special ed and the needs of students with unique needs or different needs, depending on how you want to look at it. Are there other challenges that students are facing that go attend Pittsburgh Unified Schools, or is that kind of, and there's nothing wrong with being a single focus. I'm not trying to say single focus is bad. Um, Definitely passionate about special ed, and I can appreciate that. But are there other challenges that you think that students in Pittsburgh or the families in Pittsburgh Unified are facing?
Oh, definitely. So, I will. Yeah, I can go on and on and on. I have been approached by several community members. I think a lot of the issues that they face, and that the community members are facing, students are facing, things from safety, things from not getting the resources and the additional help for homework, or the additional, support that they may need. But I know a lot of the things have been revolved around safety, especially since, I want to say February this year in Hillview, and all the incidents that occur at the high school and the middle school levels. So I think there are several issues, and I could probably talk for an hour alone on the issues alone. But one of the two things that I'm very passionate about are essentially the safety of our children, our staff, our community. That's got to be number one, as well as the educational equity for all of our students, not just special ed, because I know, the literacy and the math rates, the low levels aren't just the special ed. I know we don't have 70% special ed, in here. We have a lot of English language learners that the district services. So I think in general, my two main concerns based on a lot of the issues is essentially equity in the children's education, as well as safety.
Okay. And what do you feel the district is doing well? Or some of the things that you would like to continue if you had a successful campaign and were elected?
I mean, I think the district is doing well when it comes to, I like the fact that they have the additional student members on their board, right? I think engaging more of, your student population, I think that's great. I think the data that the district has presented over several different, board meetings, where they're trying to achieve, that's also great. I would like to continue to see that data. I think data should be driving those decisions. And I think that the administrators are doing a great job of presenting that data. I just think that we need more solutions to, try to encourage that data to be moving in the right directions.
Okay. So you mentioned solutions and, having the data, what are we going to do about it? What are some of the ideas that you have, or what would you like to, bring forward to the board as far as to try to address some of these challenges that students are facing, or, families are facing at Pittsburgh Unified?
Right. So one of the things, I'll just talk about safety. I think that's pretty much out there as of right now. So one of the things that other districts surrounding us have done is essentially each site administrator is going to have their pulse, their finger on their pulse of what's going on, right? I heard about looking at data from each site about what's going on. But I think having more community involvement, or more involvement in terms of getting those subject matter experts together. So that means sitting down the assistant soup, the soups, and the site administrators, and talking about the problems that they're facing, because each site is definitely unique. They have their own set of challenges, and then communicating that with all the top administrators, so that can be, I guess, flowed up to the board, so that the board can look at some of the solutions. So I think that's one of the things, is having more um, meetings and more impact from that site itself. And I don't think that's happening. And also, The other thing that I noticed is this was talked about prior is those, parent liaisons. They really need to be there at every school site. They need to be the voice of the parent and to be able to communicate those needs up the food chain, and to the board to get the solutions, because each parent and each site, like I said, is going to be unique.
So is it fair to say that you think the current mechanism for parents to voice their concerns is not working as well as it should?
I believe so, yes.
And you talked about having the parent liaisons do more. Is there anything else that you would want to see or to put forward to help with that process?
I mean, I think having overall, meetings with, parents. I know that they do back to school night, but at the district that I'm in, they not only do back to school night, but they do a special ed back to school night, right? Which means that they will just bring special needs parents in. So maybe do back to school night with, general population, special ed population. And hey, what a coincidence. Why don't we do non-English speaker back to school night, right? We do service that community. We need to be reaching out more. We need to be engaging. So I think, having more resources for parents to communicate, and in the manner in which they choose, to do so, I think that's important, so that the district can hear those issues and, try to come up with solutions to combat them.
So obviously, you know that you wouldn't be the only, if elected, you wouldn't be the only person on the school board. It's made up of multiple individuals. How do you see you fitting into the existing school board, and um, what value add do you bring to the school board specifically that would help them as a collective body?
Got it. So I think in general, I would fit in. I fit in with everybody. I have no issues talking and communicating, and help brainstorming. I think in terms of what is unique about me is I bring a different set of ideas, right? I've worked in the private sector. I've worked in the public sector. I've worked for a school district. I understand their budget. I was on the district where I worked. I was on their negotiation team. And so I can talk to you all about the different types of funding mechanisms, how they look at it. I also have a lot of friends in other districts, whether they be administrators, teachers, or other parents. So just trying to bring in other ideas from the surrounding districts. I think that's one of the things that I can do to help our board govern and function, is just, collectively bring ideas and let's flesh them out. I think that each of the board members, and no matter what no matter where you look at, have their own unique perspective. Everybody's diversity and perspectives needs to be heard and listened to, but I think we also need to find a middle of the road. So I would have no problem talking with, my co-board members and, having lunches and sitting down and, addressing ideas and trying to get some solutions out from those.
So you mentioned you had experience being on negotiation team and with school finance. That's obviously a challenge that you hear every time, is there's not enough money. What your experiences with the school finance, what would you bring, what ideas, or just kind of how would you help address that problem here in Pittsburgh?
So the reason why people tell you that school finance is uncertain is because of, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, the May Revise. This is the governor's budget. So every year the governor gives essentially, this is what we think we're going to fund you with, and then, oops, this is what we're going to fund you with. There is a baseline funding, LCAP funding. There's Title I, but essentially you look at it, and special ed funding. Sorry, there's all different types of funding mechanisms. But you have to look at it, and how we did it at our previous district is we would use the assumptions that the governor gave us, and we would just cut a little bit back just in case, right? So essentially under promise and over deliver. And then also look at different grant mechanisms. There's actually grants out there for CTE. So, I heard other candidates talk about building a CTE, or what you want to call career technical education, vocational programming, i.e. mechanic shop, whatnot. There are federal help with that. So looking at other funding mechanisms and seeing what, the district can do to help increase the funding. There's obviously, we all know that we have parcel taxes. I'm not at all suggesting that we look at parcel tax measures, but we do have local funding as well, and making sure those dollars are put together in the most impactful way. So essentially, I would want to align achievements with the fiscal performance, and if we can't, if we decide that we want to focus on safety and get more school resource officers, or on our campuses, then we look at where that funding can come from and divert and change. There's different funding mechanisms, and I know that the district can look at. They're actually pretty healthy when it comes to their overall budget at 149.3. Let's just round up $150 million.
Hey, what's a few dollars here and there? We have talking about 149 million. So, what are some of the challenges that you foresee Pittsburgh Unified having to face in the next, let's say, 5 years? And what do you foresee being probably the biggest challenge?
I think one of the things is just, other candidates have mentioned is literacy rate, just that we're below the state average, which is very disheartening. I see that as a big issue and a big challenge that the district needs to address and needs to have some urgency in dealing with. As I mentioned, the lawsuit with special education, that's going to be looming over the district's head for probably if the next 4 to 5 years, right, until that gets settled out through a court. So I see some definite major headwinds facing the district. And so with that being said, I'm not saying that, they can't come back. I was enrolled in a underperforming school district as a child, and, we got some board membership, former teachers and, community members that when I was in middle school, they had addressed that we were underperforming, and let's start, changing and turning that Titanic. So I think that, looking at it from a holistic perspective is you see the issues ahead. I think they're, looming, but I think that, with the right leadership and the right mindset and trying different solutions, we can essentially overcome all of that.
Okay. Well, I definitely, the things that you're talking about, some of it definitely resonates with me because as a parent with a student with unique and different needs, it's sometimes it is frustrating, and I think that's probably common in a lot of school districts. And the challenges that you bring about literacy, and online we hear people talk about increasing the GPA rate for graduation, and what they don't understand is that that's a totally relative term. 2.0 to what, right? So you make it 3.0, that doesn't matter. So how with the literacy piece, because that has been a constant thread in other with other candidates, what are some specific strategies that you would like to see take place in the district to address that, or to help increase our literacy rates?
Right. So I think you have to do it from a holistic approach. It's not just a one size fits all. Honestly, different kids learn different. Everybody has different learning styles, right? Audio, visual, right? I can go down that path. But what I think we need to do is essentially put more time into that. I know one of the programs that has been pretty helpful is working with a silent reading program. So making sure all throughout the children's education. So I'm talking from the pre-K all the way up to the senior level, where you have that time for reading and digesting. English and reading is a huge part, right? Because we need to get these children, sorry, able to read and comprehend, because when they come to a job, they're going to have to read an employee handbook. They're going to have to sign something. They're going to have to read if they're working, as a mechanic. They're going to have to know the safety issues of that, of the tools that they're working with. So I would definitely support and, more holistic reading in terms of reading all the way throughout, more early intervention with reading, right? I like the community library days, pulling in outside resources, engaging people to help read, and, just putting on community events for, book clubs, right? I think if we get our children engaged in reading things that are fun and that are interesting to them, they will pick it up. I know that actually, reading is one of my children's learning disabilities. I'll just go ahead and open that up right there. But, he had to be taught a different way to do so. And with that intervention, and it was pretty heavy, right? And they started earlier on. The earlier that you can intervene and get that child to comprehend and read, the better it is. And so I think really focusing in that, K through fifth area, but then continuing it because it's all throughout, right? Essentially learning the phonics and decoding at that K through fifth level is important. But then now, middle school and high school, it's the comprehension. It's about creating the articulating the point, and maybe even having a counter argument to that book or that point that they've read. So it is a holistic, well-rounded approach. And sometimes, we do need to pull in outside resources and lean on our, community libraries and other people to help us with that.
So it sounds like a big part of it is creating this culture of reading, and that it's not just in classroom, but that's something that's needed all the time. So talked about special ed, talked about literacy, working on the board. Are there any other areas that you would be focusing on if elected on the school board?
I mean, I think there's a lot of focus areas. I won't go.
Well, you can't focus on them all. You can only
I know, right?
More than 3, and you're in trouble.
So my main thing is, realistically, I do want to focus on our children and the equity in the education. So that means, I think that's my first and foremost priority, is equity in the education for the children, aligning the fiscal duties with that and tying it to the performance, right? I think those are my 2 main things, along with safety, because safety really is kind of overarching. You can't have, children and staff focused on learning if they don't feel safe, right? So I think those are my main 3 topics.
And so with the safety piece, we'll go on now because we didn't really dive in that. You mentioned about SROs. What are the strategies that you would like to see implemented in the district to help improve safety?
Right. So I think to have I think we did talk about that. To get the sites in there to talk about, each site level is going to have a different, unique issue, right? So I think.
Oh, yes, we did.
Right,
yes.
right.
Well, let's expound upon the safety, because I know that's a topic that definitely I've seen out there, and every candidate has talked about it. So expound on your vision or what you would like to see.
Right. So I think, so let's start off with, I think you need to have safety site meetings, right? I think you need to have all sites come together multiple times throughout the month, throughout the quarter, have, looking at their unique issues, right? Because I think at the high school level, at Pittsburg High, is going to be a lot different than at the elementary level, right? I don't see, knock on wood, as much issues at that level. So I think you have to have more communication with administration, with the parents. I think you need to be open. I do know that there's a good link. The City Hall just mentioned about their SORs, and the Pittsburgh chief presented those. I think you need to have more CRAs, the community resource assistants. Those are essentially classified folks or people like you and I, or other community members that get a job with the district, and they are to help. That's one of their jobs. Help with security, help with getting kids back on class. Not, they help defuse fights. They help, talk to the children. I think it's, once again, it's a holistic approach. You have to also have the administrators talking, to the children, the teachers talking to the children. Everybody needs to know, everybody needs to let these children know that we are invested in them, that we care about their future, we care about their education and their safety. And I think it's not just a one size fits all. I think each situation is going to be unique, and there's going to need to have different approaches for each site situation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, you can't do one size fits all. I think everybody would agree with that. It's a fluid situation. The world is changing, and there's new trends. That I was a school teacher administrator for a while, and to think that there would be TikTok challenges, I wouldn't even think of that. So there's it's a moving target. Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I want to thank you for coming out here and interviewing, and sharing a little bit about your philosophy on education and why you're running. And definitely want to encourage everybody again to go to pittsburgh.vote. That is the website. There's no .com, .org. It's just pittsburgh.vote. And you can view this recording when it's posted there, along with all the other recordings that we've done for our candidates. There are 6 candidates that are running for 3 school board spots, so you'll want to get to know them. Their contact information is available there in their bios, so please go to pittsburgh.vote. It's a free service that the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce puts together to help our residents and our businesses have a better understanding of who's running for office, and to help them be better informed when it comes time to fill out those ballots. Ballots are already being delivered, and election day is Tuesday, November 8th. So with that, Maria will give you last comments why people should vote for you, and however you would like to take it from there.
All right, thank you. So essentially, everybody that I've talked to has stated to me that Pittsburgh Unified District has room for improvement. And, I think room for improvement means having a new vision and new leadership that's going to hold everybody accountable, put our students first. Let's look at the data. Let's create solutions to get our children, achieving these educational gaps and closing these educational gaps that all of us have identified. I'm not unique in that. However, where I am unique is I'm going to bring a new vision with new leadership to the district. And a change is not going to happen with keeping with the same old leadership. A change is going to happen by changing that leadership and putting somebody in there, or putting other people in there that are going to hold the district accountable, right? You have my incumbents. I love them. I think they're wonderful people, but what have they done? What can they help do? So with that, I'm going to ask for your vote and to give me a try. And, remember that this is not going to happen in, a very short period of time. This has been lingering on for years and years and years. And it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of ideas and a lot of new leadership and new initiatives to come into the district to help create that change, so that PUSD can be a top performing district and not a low performing district.
Well, with that, everybody have a great day. And again, go to pittsburgh.vote.